the comments that Kanye West has made, anti-Semitism on the rise, those who want to compare Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany during COVID to wearing a mask. I mean, there's so many different things to talk to him about. So the rabbi will be joining us here in just a few minutes. Man, joining us in studio right now, what better person to talk about these issues when, sadly, when it comes to anti-Semitism and hate speech. Always a pleasure, though, to have Rabbi Yitz-Wyne joining me in studio today from Young Israel Synagogue here in Las Vegas. Rabbi, it is a pleasure. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Brian, it is such a pleasure to be here. It's been way too long.
Thank you so much. We have. How long has it been since you did my show?
We've known each other for many, many years, but
Yeah.
it's been a while. So
Yeah. Well, it's a
thanks
pleasure
for
to
having
see
me
you.
back.
Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I wish it was under better circumstances. Your first reaction to, number one, the Kanye West tweet, Death Con 3 on Jews.
Okay.
And number two, his lack of not even apologetic, basically saying, yeah, I knew it was anti-Semitic. I said it anyway.
Right. So, okay, so there's a few points, and I think to process anything, you have to go through each point. First of all, it's definitely anti-Semitic. It's an extremely disturbing, disgusting tweet, and that's number one. Number two is people have to be held accountable for what every person has to be held accountable for what they say. So you play recently. You just played the clip from Howard Stern, and I agree with that. I say, listen, people are responsible for what they say. Now, the third point is we, as the listeners and consumers, are also responsible to appropriately evaluate any statement and where that statement's coming from. So the reality is if you had a guy who walked in here and he was a black guy, shabby, kind of like sloppily dressed, speaking with pretty much lousy grammar and kind of scrappy, you knew nothing about him, and he came out with a series of comments. Some of them you'll agree with, some of them you won't agree with. You would pay very little attention to it. Then you say, oh, that guy, by the way, is worth $6.5 billion and is one of the best musicians ever. So all of a sudden, it's like to quote, you're Jewish, so Tevye from, Fiddler on the Roof. When he goes, when you're rich, they think you know it all, right? So that's what's going on here. Now, we've got to, as consumers, people are responsible for what they say. So, yeah, he should be condemned straight out for saying that. I'm not going, I know you might have mentioned Candace Owens, who's a friend of Kanye West, who would stop and say, oh, listen, really, he meant DEFCON 3. That's a defensive position. It's not an offense. So I'm not going to go with that at all. Even though, again, there's a lot of things that Candace Owens will say, and I will agree with. But she's biased. She's friends with him, which is fine. But the point is that if you make a mistake on a tweet and it's a typo, so yeah, give a guy 24 hours when he sobers up or stabilizes from his bipolar disorder at that moment, gets into a different space, and he speaks with people around. And then you come up with an immediate retraction or adjustment.
Which he didn't do.
Which he did not do.
And he's actually doubled down on some of the statements that he made. And you mentioned Candace Owens, Rabbi. And listen, maybe there's some things she has said in the past that I would agree with. I don't know. I don't have any respect for her. And the reason why I don't is because it's clear as day. She says things and does things so she could get clicks and that she can sell books. I don't respect anybody where that's all she does. She has these White Lives Matter, not to get into Candace Owens, but she has these White Lives Matter shirts that she's wearing with Kanye West. Remember, Kanye West is, and by the way, that's insulting to the Black Lives Matter movement. You can disagree with certain things about the movement, but the only reason why she wore that shirt with Kanye was to get clicks. And then Kanye, remember, is the guy that said slavery was a choice.
Well, I just want to hone in onto our hone in close to our topic, that in terms of his and how we have to consume it, again, the issue is that when someone makes a comment, we have to evaluate not only what the comment is and judge it, but we also have to, where is it coming from? So again, there's a whole issue. People will say, oh, the guy's got $6 billion, 11, whatever. He'll say 11 billion, whatever it is. And then they will give him a lot of credence. Now, you and I both know a bunch of rich people. Okay. Yep. You sat in the room with a billionaire before, and I will tell you that the basic rule is that if someone has made a lot of money, chances are they are the smartest guy in the room in one or two areas of 20 areas in life.
Sure.
But they're not the smartest guy in the room on all 20 areas. So Kanye West, creative guy, successful musician, successful businessman. Yes, mentally unstable in many, many forms. And that's the thing. So I don't give credence to people because of celebrity or because of wealth.
Sure.
I evaluate, okay, what are you talking about, and what's the situation, that kind of stuff. So I think more than almost, I don't want to say more. I'm going to speak specifically in non-absolute terms. Perhaps more than we should be condemning, Kanye West, we should condemn a general condemnation of just people that really are giving so much weight to a guy like him.
I agree with you. That's a very good point.
I think
Let's
that's the
talk.
issue.
I agree.
Let's talk
about
think that's
that.
a much stronger issue.
What do you make of now? Listen, I'm not a doctor, and when people are saying Kanye West, he's mentally ill, obviously there's something going on there. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to try to. It's kind of like when people say, well, Joe Biden has dementia. I get frustrated because I don't know whether Kanye West is mentally ill or not. Maybe he is. I don't know.
Okay.
Here's what I do know. He's not a very intelligent person when it comes to history. It could be slavery. It could be anti-Semitism and what Jewish people have had to face their entire life. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I've even had to face that. You being a rabbi, you're no stranger.
Yeah.
When he makes a general statement, and that's what he did, right? This is what anti-Semitism and racism, when you generalize someone because of their faith or because of the color of their skin or gender or whatever. He didn't say, I had a couple people in the music industry that did me wrong. Why even bring their Jewish faith into it? By the way, Jewish people aren't running this country. We've never even had a Jewish president before. So anybody who makes this claim, and it's a Jewish trope, it's a claim that Jewish people are running the country. I'm like, what are you talking about? First of all, it's not all people of the Jewish faith that run record labels and TV. Some of them happen to be Jewish. Jewish people are not running the country. Number one, why do people like Kanye West think that and say that Jewish people are running the country? And why do they generalize? He said so many ridiculous things. He said Jewish people are something about not allowing black people to be heard. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you make of that?
Listen, it speaks to the old joke how there was a politician in New York who said, Jews run Hollywood, and in order to get him back for that, the couple of big producers in Hollywood, arranged for a hurricane to hit New York and wipe it down. The idea is that listen, why do people say that? Again, there's anti-Semitism is ultimately in its very core. It is a hatred against God. It's a hatred against morality. I don't think I've heard many statements attributed to Kanye West that are negative against Jews, and it might be due to his personal business experience from that. But again, you're dealing with, in his case, you're dealing with someone with a well-known bipolar disorder. People who are out of that disorder, they say things that are off balance. They say things that are distasteful, flat out wrong if they're in a disturbed state. When they get into another state, they might say the exact opposite. So, anti-Semitism and why that exists and how to fight it, that is a very valuable conversation. I think the less valuable conversation is a guy like Kanye West. No matter what he's saying, like if we were sitting with him, you might stop and say, I want this radio show to go national. Mm-hmm. He might have the ticket for you, man. like literally, we sat down with him for 15 minutes. Right. He might actually know the pathway because that is his expertise. You spoke about his ignorance with history. You spoke about his ignorance about other things. Yeah. So again, but I wouldn't just say it's ignorance. I would say it's a emotional disorder that's going on, a mental disorder. So I think we have to, hone on into the more important things, which is who should we believe? How do we process things? Find people that are reputable in various areas and then learn from them in that area and not necessarily in that area. I know there's people who you deeply respect as business people,
Sure.
you will not go to them for parenting advice.
No.
Right?
Definitely not.
And the reverse is true as well.
But isn't this so, Rabbi? I agree with you. Isn't this dangerous? And the reason why I say dangerous because we remember after 9/11, there were hate crimes committed against Muslim people. I'm sure you would be the first one to agree. There are a lot of very good people in this country that happen to be Muslim.
Yeah.
I don't care what their religion is. We saw similar things happen, sadly, with Asian hate crimes, with people attacking people that are Asian because of coronavirus. Horrible. And when I see somebody like Kanye West, who has 30 million followers, who is arguably one of the most famous people, certainly in the world, and they have this platform and they say death con to Jewish people and other things, I feel like there are a lot of, well, not I feel, I know, there are a lot of crazy people in the world, particularly in this country. White supremacists who not just hate black people, but hate Jewish people as well as many others as well. And you're giving them an opportunity, sadly, to commit a violent crime. And that's what worries me when Kanye West makes a statement like that. Some people, will say, well, mental illness, emotion, and you know what? You're probably right. He obviously has some sort of mental illness. I don't doubt that, but I don't think, and I know you're not doing this, I don't use that as an excuse. I just feel like this is very dangerous rhetoric, and I use the term rhetoric a lot for people, especially people with big platforms. I feel like it could, and I hope I'm wrong, give somebody that's violent and maybe hates Jewish people an excuse to commit a violent crime. And do you put a little bit of blame on Kanye if in fact that does happen? So
you don't put blame on him, and this is why. Anybody who speaks for a living, eventually, and he does, and you do, and other people, and who have hours of time when many others are listening to them. You say a certain number of stupid things, just because you're talking for so long. And like I said before, and we'd mentioned, you got to be willing to own it and step back. Own what you say and correct it. If knowledge is power, then and positive power, then ignorance is the most pernicious form of wickedness that's out there. In other words, and I think that when we stop and we say, listen, Kanye, you got 30 million followers, you throw that as a tweet, and you're going to have some people that are ignorant and some people that are looking to do bad in the world, and they will blame their evil on him. So, we have to always be saying, we got to be the voice of reason, the voice of knowledge, and say, no, everyone's responsible for their own actions. And we have to be, I think it's important to be across the board by this. You can't say that, like, if Donald Trump says something and he has a big following, and it could be construed as, to be inciting violence. So don't go after him. But when Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters or any of those say something that is equally as inciting violence or whatnot, don't give them a pass. You got to be straight with everybody, no matter if you're their friend or foe, you agree with them politically or disagree with them.
So I agree with what you said. I just think, and I know that we might disagree a little bit when it comes to politics, and that's fine. I think there are different levels of incitement, right? I think there are different levels, and I think words are important. And listen, if Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi or any Democrat incites violence in any way, shape, or form, I also agree with you. I want them held to account, and we need to be consistent. I did hear that about Maxine Waters, where she said we need to be confrontational. And people do construe that with inciting violence. I don't put that at the same level of Donald Trump attacking our democracy, because I don't think January 6th happens if Donald Trump isn't doing that. At the same time, I don't agree with Maxine Waters and her language, but I do believe you can be confrontational without lighting things on fire and attacking police officers.
Well, again, it's like when Donald Trump, unless you want to go, I'll go wherever you want to go.
No, it's fine.
But
it's fine.
But like, if when he stands up on January 6th, says, let's march peacefully to the Capitol.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, the only one who's playing that clip is Fox News, but CNN and the others are specifically intentionally omitting that clip, and then it's playing the other ones. again, there's such dishonesty.
There's
in
a
the
lot of
news.
dishonesty in the media.
Yeah.
In regards to that, it wasn't necessarily the comments he made that day that I had. I mean, Rudy Giuliani said trial by combat, and there were other people that day who made some very insightful comments.
Yeah.
To me, it was Donald Trump lying about the election for months prior. If he doesn't lie about the election, January 6th doesn't happen. It wasn't necessarily him saying, hey, I want you to go on there and defecate on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I want you to attack police officers. I'm not sure you have to do that. It was the big lie that he still talks about today. If he didn't say Joe Biden cheated and the Democrats stole the election, January 6th doesn't happen. I think when you're a former president, a current president, or anybody with a big platform, you could be Kanye West, Donald Trump, or Maxine Waters, or Nancy Pelosi. Your words matter. And while I understand what you're saying, I respect your opinion. The person you really have to blame is the person who actually commits the violent act. There's no question about that. I agree with you. But I do think there's partial blame. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? There's a reason why we say that. So it's not necessarily Donald Trump saying, I want you to go in there and I want you to say, hang Mike Pence. But it's his behavior afterwards for 5 hours, doing nothing, watching television, giggling, being happy of what took place that day, not putting out a video. So I agree with you. I didn't like Maxine Waters' comment. And I'm sure Nancy Pelosi has said things that I don't agree with either. I just feel like we didn't have a January 6th. And I'm worried that if we see more of Kanye West type people out there with large platforms making these anti-Semitic comments, and we agree it was absolutely anti-Semitic, regardless of mental issues, I'm worried. I'm worried that we're going to see an attack on people of the Jewish faith. You think I have a right to be a little worried about that?
I think I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, you're right. Because there are people that are just as unstable as he is that will gravitate and say, "No, he's my rabbi, he's my leader, he's my inspiration." And those people, they will do that. So should we be concerned? Yes. I think what's much more in our control is to send out the beacon of personal responsibility and accountability. And when people do make comments that are like this, then we have to come out quickly, condemn them. I like what Piers Morgan tried to do. I mean, he tried to lead him into a full-blown apology, a retraction. I mean, like over and over and over again. And Kanye West wouldn't do it. He just wouldn't go that way. But again, the fact that he wouldn't do it that way, go that way, again, just speaks to his confusion of values. I don't know if you watched the whole clip of one of the things that stood out to me was when Kanye West basically said, "Listen, I have more money than you, so you should be asking me for advice." And again, that's a crooked value in society. This idea, whoever has the most gold,
they have all the answers.
Yeah, they got all the answers.
Isn't that true?
Right.
Yeah.
So that, like, in other words, when you go, one of the reasons I spend my life teaching Jewish values, through the Torah, is because these, again, knowledge is power, and when you have the right values, then everything else goes a lot more smoothly in your life, and you have a proper way to understand world events in a better way. So that's something that needs to be spoken about.
I agree. If you're just joining us, Rabbi Yitz-Wyne from Young Israel Synagogue here in Las Vegas joining us. We're talking about the Kanye West hurtful statements, anti-Semitic statements. I think we all agree could be dangerous statements. All right, so Rabbi, I want to ask you this. If you had an opportunity to be in a room alone, in private, with Kanye West, if you had an opportunity to speak to him, to try to reach him, what would you say?
Oh, Kanye, how do I get Brian's radio show to be like syndicated? Like,
good luck with that. Yeah,
that's what we need to do. Like, that's where because that's what he knows. You get it? Like I'm not.
I'd rather you ask her ask him how can I get Kim Kardashian out on a date?
Yeah, okay, that's what you want. You're a Jewish guy. Stick with the Jewish girls. Here we go. So I speak with people based on what they know, right? Based on what they know, based in their frame. If I'm asking advice from people, I want to know what do I ask advice from, and the other stuff. No, hey, am I gonna? When I speak with them, you've seen these interviews. You go like, oh my gosh, can I make heads and tails of this guy?
Yeah.
Like most times not. Most times, no, I cannot make heads and tails of this guy. He's over here. He's over there. He's all over the place. So, Listen, I'm not in the fashion business, not in the music business, so it's okay. So he's very irrelevant in my life. However, like you said, he has a platform, so we have to pay a little bit of attention, correct him when we can. But the main thing is teach the right values, personal responsibility, and those things.
So if I was in a room with Kanye,
what are you asking?
Forget about being on the air or trying to be entertaining or doing a show. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I would say to him.
Yeah.
Kanye, I don't doubt that maybe you've had Jewish people in your life that have done you wrong. But Kanye, guess what? I've had all sorts of people do me wrong.
Yeah.
Jewish people, Christian people, black people, white people, every race, every religion. I've had people in my life at 42 years old. Some of those people that have that faith or look like those people have done me wrong. Right. But what I don't do is what you do, and I don't go out and say death con to Muslims or black people or Christian people. I would never do that because I look at the individual, not the religion and not what they look like. Why can't you just say, I've had some people in the record industry that have done me wrong and I'm really angry at them? Why do you have to interject their religion? Because I'm Jewish. I don't oppress black people. I don't take freedom of speech away from black people. Right. I don't do any of the things that you accused Jewish people of doing. So why do you have to generalize that? And I would love to hear his answer. He probably wouldn't give me a very articulate answer, but that's what I would ask him. And I would try to get him, which would be very difficult to do, I would try to get him to understand that you can't make a generalization just because a select few people in a specific religion may have done you wrong. I've had some Jewish people in my life that have done me wrong. Never brought up their religion because I don't care what their religion is. I think too many people in society, like Kanye, will look at someone. You'll see a black person maybe, I'm just using this as an example, commit a crime. And then you'll associate that with, all black people are bad people, they commit crimes. Ignorant people, racist people, anti-Semitic people, generalize like that. And maybe they're taught at a young age to hate a certain type of people. I don't know. But that's what I would try to say to him. It probably wouldn't work. You have to be open to discussion. You have to be open to listening to somebody that you offended. That's what I would try to say to him.
So, I get where you're going with that. Yeah. And I would not try and say, I know what's in Kanye's mind. Yeah. For sure not. Probably not a place any of us want to get to.
Right.
But just again, from a very brief comment that he made on the Piers Morgan interview, when Piers says, that what you said is racist, and he said, that's right, I'm fighting fire with fire. My assumption is that if you brought these points to Kanye, he would agree with you. Because what's he doing? He is an entertainer, and he is selling his brand, and he's selling Kim. And so therefore, he will speak in absolutes and hyperbole, and he will make it very big. And by the way, you do it as well on your level. On your level, you speak about an individual. You'll talk about a person that makes a ridiculous statement, and you'll actually say, "I have no respect for them." And then I would stop. Like if you and I took that person and said, "Okay, but you like that idea and that idea and that." So the 6 ideas you like, 2 ideas you don't like, so you have no respect for him. And then when we're sitting having a beer, you might say, "Okay, I have a little respect for him," but because it makes for much better radio conversation, you'll say, "I have no respect."
I'm going to be honest with you, though.
Yeah.
When I say I have no respect for somebody, they can do a lot of wonderful things in their life. And I might respect some of the things they've done in their life. But as a whole, as a human being, I don't respect Candace Owens. Okay. And I'll tell you why. People that have known her before she became famous, I speak to them on a regular basis. They know her personally. And they know she's not a Republican. And she says things so that she can get clicks, make money, and sell her book. Now, normally I wouldn't have a problem with that. All right, say things so you can make money and get it. Fine. But the things she says hurt people. When you wear a shirt that says White Lives Matter, you are mocking the movement. I understand there are people within the Black Lives Matter organization that might not be great people, and they've taken advantage of a situation. I understand that. I also understand there were Black Lives Matter protests out there where officers were injured and things were lit on fire. That's all horrible. I'm not condoning any of that. Okay. But there are tens of millions of people that peacefully protested. Why? Because as a whole in society, I think most people would agree, black people have not been treated the same as white people. Things are getting better. They're not perfect. When she wears a shirt, a black woman with a huge platform, and wears a shirt that says White Lives Matter, she's only doing it for one reason. She's doing it so that she could make headlines, sell more of her books, and make more appearances on Fox News. I don't respect people that behave that way.
I think if we climb back a little beforehand, so first of all, again, making headlines, selling books, that kind of stuff. It's very funny. One of the common day, modern day political ads, against Adam Laxalt, writes, he said, "Oh, the guy made so much money, the oil companies, this and that, whatever, that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
And I stop and I look at that and I go, "Oh,
I don't have a problem with that.
I should vote for him."
I don't have, Rabbi, I don't have, don't get me wrong, Rabbi, I don't have a problem with that.
Right,
That's not why I don't like Adam Laxalt. For example,
there might be other reasons, but
the big lie. I mean,
okay, right. So that might not right, but you look and say, "Oh, wait, because the guy was like a businessman and because he made a bunch of cash."
I don't have a problem with anybody making money
for him.
as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Right. Okay. So the thing is like this, and then when we go over to the White Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter again,
right?
You want to hone into the organization, hone into the actual the core of the movement. There's a lot of sketchy stuff going on there. I'm not going with that movement at all. You want to stop and say, okay, listen, we're black, or we understand a black or white, that makes no difference. We understand that racism is evil,
right?
And that everyone we're all children of the Almighty. We're all created in the image of God, and we should all be given the same opportunities regardless. So then do that. And by the way, and I think that originally when they're burning down police stations and courthouses and turning Minneapolis into a war zone, Seattle into a war zone, under the name of Black Lives Matter, I think that originally when people said, wait, White Lives Matter too, it was very simply saying, hey, listen, stop with the craziness of using violence in the name of something,
Sure. I mean, there was a small percentage of people.
Okay.
When I say small percentage, when you take tens of millions of people, where there are a couple thousand people that did some awful things, absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they don't represent most black people in this country, and they certainly don't represent equality and why so many people were out there. You could say the same thing about January 6th. While I don't agree with their politics, there were hundreds of thousands of people out there that were not criminals. They support Donald Trump, and they just wanted to hear him speak. Fine, I have no problem with that. Right. They were peacefully protesting. But there was a small percentage of people that did some very bad things that day.
And I try to be accountable and
absolutely same as the Black Lives Matter people who committed. I agree with you. We agree, and that's I try to hone that in. When you have a group of people that do bad things, it shouldn't represent the entire movement. Right. Whether that be listening to Donald Trump speak or Black Lives Matter. Now, I think those are two different things when you're talking about a lie. And
but I think the White Lives Matter thing, I think it was maybe a bit of mock. I mean, listen, I got to tell you something. I don't know. I've never been explained to clearly why someone who said White Lives Matter, why that should be offensive to a person that doesn't want racism.
I'll tell you why.
Right? Because
I will try to give you a good answer to that, because I think that is a fair question. In the history of this country, white people have not been oppressed. In the history of this country, for the most part, there are some racist people against white people, no question. But white people on average, get paid more than any other race in this country. If you are white, you cannot convince me that you're treated unfairly because of the color of your skin. So when you say White Lives Matter, I don't believe the good people within the movement think that white lives don't matter. They're just the Black Lives Matter theme is we want to be treated as equals, whether it be law enforcement or business or whatever the case may be.
So they should say everyone matters. Because they should change their branding. They should say everyone matters, and because everyone does matter. Everyone does matter, and there is plenty of, let's call it, reverse racism. Right, we know people that didn't get into college because they're white.
Right, everybody's life does matter. But a perfect example of George Floyd. If George Floyd was white, I don't believe he's dead. If Ahmaud Arbery is white, he's not dead. It's very difficult for me to reverse that role. I don't see cops and listen, most cops are great people. But I don't see cops killing somebody or saying, well, he did that to that person because they're white. There are many examples where I think it's evident where we can say that something happened to somebody because of the color of the skin, because they're black. Obviously, all lives matter, and I've never heard any semi-intelligent or intelligent person that is within the Black Lives Matter movement that say white lives don't matter. But what I'm trying to say is Candace Owen did that not because she thinks white lives matter, or not because, number one, you're right, she was probably mocking the Black Lives Matter movement. As a black person, I think that's despicable to do that. If you want to criticize certain aspects of the organization, that's fine. She did it for one reason and one reason only: to make headlines. It worked. And to get Kanye West, who is a very gullible person, let's be frank, to wear the shirt as well, she knew that it would make headlines.
Well, did it go from him to her, or from her to him?
It was her idea from people that are around them. He agreed to do it. They had a scheme, and they did it. It made the headlines. And now she is talking to a lot of his people. She's trying to run his life. Absolutely the wrong person that should be around Kanye. Kanye needs people around him that actually truly care about him, that aren't after his money, that are out to get him the mental health that he needs. Now, in the end, he's an adult, right? He can do what he wants. But I don't believe he has the good people around him that care about him.
Well, listen, you know that very wealthy people are the loneliest people you will ever meet.
Very true.
Right? Because they're always suspect. Is that person, do they like me because of me, or do they like me because they want my money?
Very true. I know a billionaire who just married a 22-year-old woman. Yeah. And he even admitted to me that, well, I'm lonely, man. I need somebody around me when I die. I need somebody around me.
They don't really have that trust. So listen, with the extreme wealth comes extreme challenges.
Sure.
Most people would not want those challenges. They want the wealth without the challenge.
Right.
But life is a package deal.
Right. No, you're right. You're right.
So.
You're right. So moving forward now, Rabbi, this isn't the first time we saw somebody who was a celebrity, or Nick Cannon made some idiotic statements. We see celebrities at times make very hurtful anti-Semitic remarks. And I think it's important to call it out, to call out the hate. Do you think we're taking too much time talking about Kanye West, the other side of the ball?
Again, you call it out, and then you call it out strongly, and then you move forward into what people can learn from it, which we've touched a little bit on. In other words, it is a good. I think it's an excellent jumping point to, again, talk about people have to take personal responsibility. People have to evaluate who's saying what, and I think that's kind of the antidote to the 30 million followers on Twitter. That some of those, even if it's a 1/10 of 1%, it's a lot of people.
Right.
That by the way is always my, when you get up Ilhan Omar, she gets up there and she spews her Jew hatred and her, and as a member of Congress and that kind of stuff, and then people come and say, "Oh, all Muslims are bad. They all want to sink Israel." I said, "Well, you know what? If all Muslims wanted to knock out Israel, I mean, there are 1 billion of them." Yeah. Right. If
not everybody thinks the way Ilhan Omar thinks. I will give her credit for something, though. And by the way, I don't like Ilhan Omar. Yeah. I wish she wasn't a congresswoman. I will give her credit for something, though. She listened to Jewish people, and she apologized immediately, the opposite of Kanye West, when she said, and I think probably the worst thing, we know she's not pro-Israel, okay? We know that. Yeah. But that's a policy disagreement. I wouldn't necessarily call that anti-Semitism. But when she said it's all about the Benjamins, when talking about people of the Jewish faith, I think a lot of people can construe that as anti-Semitism, and I understand why. She listened to people, and I'm not defending her statements, by the way, but she apologized. And at least I give her a little bit of credit for doing that. Yeah. Kanye hasn't even done that.
Well,
right?
That's the whole thing. Like, when he would say something that, I mean, they both of them have said equivalent things, Jews and money, and it's only about the money and that kind of stuff.
She didn't threaten the death of all Jewish people, though.
Right. Because, but again, she is an individual that will make less crazy statements than he will. She will discuss things with better grammar and more structured.
Do you believe when she said it's all about the Benjamins that she meant it that way?
Oh, I believe she doesn't like Jews. I believe she hates Jews, 100%. Yeah. I think that she's, just from her background and her life experience and her friends, the people she aligns herself with. I mean, listen, one of our dear friends, former Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley. Yeah. She led a walkout in the Democratic National Convention when the Democrats were going to take Israel the support for Israel off the official Democratic platform.
Yeah.
She, in her last term, her last convention, she literally gathered, 100 other fellow congressmen, said, no, we are going to walk out of the convention on this. She really was a modern day Queen Esther.
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar, she's pushing for it.
So, Rabbi,
So
you
it's
might
like,
be
yeah.
right. You
Yeah,
might be
that's the
right.
thing,
I don't know
yeah.
what's in her heart. I can
Yeah.
tell you that I don't like her, and I
Yeah.
don't like some of the statements that she made, and I've been pretty open about that. Let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
As a conservative,
Yeah.
right? You're a conservative.
Yeah.
Which nothing wrong with that. Do you think Ocasio-Cortez is anti-Semitic?
Absolutely. I
Why,
think
why do
another
you
one.
say that? Because that's where we might disagree. What has she said that you would lead you to believe that she doesn't like people of the Jewish faith?
She mostly who she aligns herself with. In other words, a person by who they stand with in their faction. So I don't have a quote that AOC said, on the top of my head, but I know that she is very closely aligned with Omar, who I'm clear as
They're friends. You're right.
Yeah.
They are.
And I know, I just don't remember the exact quote, but we'll look it up. We can talk about it later when I'm more prepared for this question. But she has said and done things that are clearly anti-Israel and anti-Jewish. So I don't, she's part of that. She's part of that group.
Well, that's unfortunate
Yeah.
that you feel that way.
Yeah.
And listen, again, I don't know what is in her heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I admire the fact that she went to college, she worked her way through school as a bartender, and she made something of herself. Again, I don't know what's in her heart. But I
Right.
would also, to
Right.
the contrary, not to bring up Donald Trump, but I will in this situation. Donald Trump has made some very anti-Semitic remarks in his life, including, I don't want black people counting my money in my casinos. I want Jews counting my money. He said that in Playboy magazine. So, I mean, when you make a...
So wait. I take that as a positive.
I don't. I think that's... I mean, it's funny, but...
Yeah, right. Like I would say, oh, okay. Well,
It's funny, but the insinuation is money and Jews.
But
Right?
but you know what? Like again, I don't take that
Yeah.
as It depends how you say it. You could say it's all about the Benjamins, or you could say they did it to make money. You could say, we could talk about, again.
I think they're both wrong.
There's a whole thing. So all the stereotypes, the problem with stereotypes is they're stereotypes.
Sure.
Okay. And that's something which you spoke about earlier in terms of when you would speak about Kanye West. That's the problem with it. I do think that we have to stop and say.
Is Kanye calling you?
It's
a phone call from Kanye West.
Definitely, definitely. He's saying, "Back down, man." Okay, all right, there you go. Right? Yeah. So that's the thing. So I think we have to recognize that people should be called out on their mistakes, and when you're called out on your mistake, you should own your mistake and backtrack quickly. And I think again, that's a positive value. The real benefit of talking about these celebrities that come out with an anti-Semitic or a hateful statement, or one that is not necessarily directly hateful but could be construed as hateful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's what's going on, especially in the media, because the media is extremely dishonest. So I think I've seen a lot of different people. Was it really anti-anybody? No, it wasn't anti-anybody. But we'll say it's anti-somebody. We'll make a big deal about it. I think the responsible media people take it the next step over to a how do we process things better, and how do we make other people's lives better?
I do want to ask you a question about Trump, because he just made a statement the other day saying that he talking about how he could be the prime minister of Israel, and that he was so great to the people of Israel, and that he was calling out U.S. Jews. That's the statement that he used.
Okay.
That were not grateful of everything he did for Israel. And I took that as, well, I'm a U.S. Jewish person.
Right.
I'm not kissing your feet. I think you're a horrendous human being. I'm not going to praise you.
But do you appreciate all the benefit he brought to Israel? Do you appreciate that, or is it, or do you kind of like cloud it all together, saying, "Listen,
if there were
I don't
policies,
align with him, and I don't like him, and so therefore I'm not going to go with those things"? Can you separate it?
That's a very good question. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know all of the things that Donald Trump has done for Israel, but let's just assume for a moment, and I'm sure you'll fill me in, which is fine, that Donald Trump was pro-Israel and he did so many things for Israeli people. I say if that's true, that's great. But I believe he did more harm for the world and more harm as a whole to this country than good. And that's why I do not support him. And I am not, even if that was true, I'm not going to be praising him every day because I believe he pushed hatred and bigotry, and he gave hateful people a platform to be comfortable in their racism and hatred. He's also made anti-Semitic comments in the past, and while I can praise him for doing certain things, right, I'm happy to do that. Like, for example, Operation Warp Speed. It seems like every time he does something good, he turns it into a negative. He was quiet about getting the vaccine himself. He never really told people to get the vaccine until after his presidency. So I'm not one of those people that's going to say he didn't do anything good, because clearly he did do some good things. I'm a realist, but I believe he did more bad things as a whole for society than good. And I am not going to sit here and kiss his feet because I am Jewish and he might have done good things for the Israeli people. I still feel the same way about him, and I will always feel that way about him. He could donate $1 million to charity every day for the rest of his life to Jewish people, and I'm still not going to praise him because I think he's a despicable human being, and I can give you thousands of examples why I feel that way. Am I wrong in feeling that way?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, you're going to feel that way this way or that way. But I will tell you, just intellectually factual, I will say he did a lot of great things for Israel and the Jewish people. He did a lot of great things, I believe, for America. He did a lot of great things for the world. And I would say that...
what did he do for this country?
Oh, no, I got to go through the whole list,
okay.
right? I would catch each one of the things he said. He said many of his statements, I believe, were misconstrued. I don't think he is an anti-Semite. I think that people who wanted to claim, I think and a lot of times, again, people that are speaking a lot will say the wrong things, or will say things that could be misconstrued. And I think,
give me an example.
I think that, well, listen, when one of the more well-known examples was, in Charlottesville, when he says, listen, there are good people on both sides.
Why say that, though?
So hold on. So again, that's a great example of a guy who condemns racism, and the next day and the next day and the next, and over and over and over again, he said, I condemn racism, I condemn racism, I condemn racism. But any person and there were never Trumpers before he got into office and after he got into office, every never Trumper never said, oh yes, he condemns racism. They just said, he said there were good people on both sides.
Here's why I don't give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
I understand the point you're making.
Okay.
I hear a lot of Trump supporters and Republicans make that point. Here's why I disagree with you. This is the same man who defended the Confederate flag. Days after NASCAR banned the Confederate flag, which was, by the way, the right thing to do, what did Donald Trump do? Did he say, that's the right thing to do? The Confederate flag represents hatred and racism. No. He attacked NASCAR for banning the Confederate flag. So let me ask you a question. If that was a swastika, and NASCAR banned the swastika, and Donald Trump went up there and attacked NASCAR for banning the swastika, would you still praise him for all the things he did for Israel?
You cannot make a comparison between a swastika and a Confederate flag. They're two different things.
Don't they both represent hatred?
No. Not nearly on the same level, not nearly on the thing. You have to be so careful. I think people have got to be very, very careful. Anytime they climb into, he's like a Nazi. He's another Hitler. He's doing the same.
I didn't
as
say
Hitler.
that.
Yeah. I know you didn't say that. Okay. Yeah. But those statements are
he did defend the Confederate flag,
implied by saying, listen, a swastika. And,
right.
So again, I am not I do not think that they should be taking down outlawing the Confederate flag. I don't think they should be tearing down statues of people. I think in their day. We have to. Would
you be okay with Adolf Hitler statues in this country because it's history?
No, because it's not. Again, Adolf Hitler in his day was evil.
Yeah,
Adolf Hitler today is evil.
Weren't there some of these statues to some of these people? Aren't they
totally different things?
They owned human beings.
In their day, we have to remember. Their day, right? Nobody did more to abolish slavery than America. Okay, nobody. We were the first ones to do it. In their day, what was going on? You had all of the black African countries rounding up their own people
Yeah.
and selling their own people as slaves. So I think it's, today we can stop and we could say, you know what? A lot of the founding fathers, they owned slaves. Okay, that was terrible. They did that. But I think you don't stop, and we're not going to start,
I don't think the biggest issue in this country are the statues, but why don't we take a quick phone call? Put on that headset real quick if you don't mind. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to John. John, what's up? You're on with the Rabbi. Go ahead.
Amen.
Hey, John.
Rabbi, I have never been more disappointed in a religious man in my life. Is it okay for Donald Trump, a man whom 27 women accused of sexual assault, who was caught on a hot mic saying, basically admitting to the crime, that he just can walk up to strange women and grab them by the kitty cat, and he gets away with it because he's a celebrity. That, in and of itself, as a man of religion, should disqualify him from being on your favorite person list. It's just absolutely disgraceful. I have never been more ashamed of a religious person than I am of you right now.
Well, let's let the Rabbi respond. Go ahead.
That's because you're confusing issues. In other words,
I'm not confusing anything.
No, let me explain your confusion. There are two
I'm not confused.
There are two kinds of confusions. One is
stop with the word confused.
One is,
I am not confused. I am
all
wide-eyed.
right. Well,
and I'm
let the Rabbi. Hold on, John. Hang on.
Let's mute John.
Even if you disagree, let the Rabbi respond. Go ahead.
Because he sounds confused.
Go ahead.
There are two sources of confusion.
What a fraud you are.
All right, hold on, John. Hang on.
One is that when you say the wrong thing, that leads to confusion. Another thing is if you say something that is correct but irrelevant to the conversation, that also brings confusion in. So if you turn to me and say, did you vote for Donald Trump because he is a righteous, holy person? I would say no. But I would say to you that I did vote for Donald Trump because I agreed
You're
with his
separating
policies.
with personal statements and personal behavior
They're
to policy. John, okay, go ahead, John.
Totally different. So John, I would suggest to you that you take a piece of paper and draw things out. Say these are personal issues. These are issues that are of political nature, and other ones. So if you do that, you'll live a better life because you won't mix it all together.
You've convinced yourself of all the crap you spew out all day long, huh? That's clearly what's happening.
Well, hold on. So John, hang on.
Sexual assault by 27 women.
John, I understand that.
Alone,
so John,
bar none, is enough to disqualify him from my favorite person.
So here's the thing.
I don't need any mumbo jumbo from you and
John, I'm not giving
diagrams to tell me otherwise.
All right, so John, hang on a second. We all vote differently. John, you and me probably vote in a similar fashion where we want not only good policy, but good people. Some people are able to put aside not so nice, bad people, but policy that'll help the country. Now, obviously, I disagree with the Rabbi, but what he is trying to say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what Rabbi is trying to say is, I don't condone Donald Trump, the human being, but I like his policies, and I'm willing to deal with someone who's not a good person in return for policies that I like. Is that the gist of what you're saying?
It's more than that. It's in the right direction, but it's more than that. It's understanding that these things are. It's not like I'll put up with this, and because of that, these things are separate issues. Is someone who speaks?
Man. There's like murder is the worst crime you can commit. Rape is second on the list.
Cut him off.
All right. Well, John. Yeah. So, John, we agree on a lot of things politically. And with all due respect to the Rabbi, I want both. I want somebody that is a decent human being that doesn't talk that way about women. I want somebody that does not attack women based on looks. I'll tell you what I think should have disqualified. And again, to your point, you're talking about policy. I'm not talking about policy. That's just not the way I vote. When he said he didn't respect John McCain because he was captured, that was one of the most disgusting things anybody has ever said in the history of politics. And when John McCain took that microphone from that lady, and when that lady called Barack Obama a Muslim and a terrorist or whatever, and McCain took that mic and said, "No, ma'am, we disagree on policy. Barack Obama's a decent man. That was a moment in time in history where we should be at in politics. And that's why I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Believe it or not, a lot of it has nothing to do with politics and policy. It has to do with we just vote differently. That's all.
And I think that's part of that's part of why this is the greatest country in the world, because you have the ability to vote differently. What you're going to pick is most important to you is fine. And
is there a line though, Rabbi? Like if he had slurred out an anti-Semitic comment, which I won't say, but I think you know the word I'm talking about, would you have still voted for him if he had good policy? Where's the line for you, Rabbi?
That's a very reasonable question.
Yeah.
As of right now, the line would be legal and illegal, right? It would be, if a person...
So breaking the law, not moral character.
You're climbing. Yeah. In other words, you move up. President Clinton, I think, was disgusting personally.
Yeah.
Personally. But I think he was a good president. I mean, but personally, he was disgusting. But again, if he was, I think what a lot of people do, a lot of people that are Democrats and liberal, they'll say, oh, but no, they'll justify all that stuff, but they won't transfer it over.
Let me ask you another question. Knowing what you know about Donald Trump now, most likely he broke the law. I think hopefully we could agree on that. Whether it's incitement about January 6th or his charities, which clearly his family stole from, or taxes, the lawsuit with the Attorney General in New York. There's so many different lawsuits and possible criminality. We just had a judge that concluded that he lied and he defrauded the American people because he knew that he lost the election, yet he signed. So knowing what you know now, as far as going by your criminality standards,
right,
would you still vote for Donald Trump in 2024?
It depends on who he's against. Because depending on who he's against, the other person might literally be on the same level as that. And again, you don't pick a person... the way our democratic system, our electoral system is structured is basically you're picking between two people who very often both of them are morally sketchy.
Okay, but let me give you an example. Gavin Newsom, I'm sure you don't agree with a lot of his policies, but last I checked, Gavin Newsom's never been under investigation. He's never broken the law. You know what Donald Trump, you're a really smart guy. You know what Trump has done and so on and so forth. Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump. Will you take that criminality and put aside policy and say, you know what, I don't agree with Gavin Newsom on a lot of policies, but he's not a criminal. So I'm going to vote for Gavin Newsom over Donald Trump. Is that a point that you would do? Or
no, because Gavin Newsom's policies...
So even with criminality...
hold on, wait, because policies also lead somewhere. See, Gavin Newsom's policies have led to way more criminality, way more crime.
But that's a policy thing, though. It doesn't mean he's a criminal.
No, again, but it's all part of it. It's like, in other words, you have to vote for people that are going to move the world to a better place.
Right.
That's what you have to do. So if a person says, listen, I am scotch-free, but my policies are going to just lead to way more crime, way more destruction.
Listen,
so then that's as if that's all on him.
Listen, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that think the way you think. I'm just trying to dissect it in which that even you would go as too far as to say, yes, Donald Trump is probably a criminal. He's done some horrible things, but I'm still going to vote for Donald Trump because I don't like somebody else's policies that could lead to more criminality.
But let's understand how powerful this is.
Yeah.
If you turn to your friend over here and says, hey, listen, give $100 to charity, and he gives $100 to charity, and he would not have done it unless you inspired him.
Yeah.
Guess what, Brian? In heaven, he gets the reward for the $100, and you get the reward for the $100 because you get reward for what right. Let's say you turn and you say, "Hey, I want you to go and beat up that guy in the street and steal $100 from him," and you enabled him to do that. You get the crime as well.
I understand what you're saying. It's
so
just
in that regard, I would turn to you right now. I'd say Gavin Newsom. Oh my gosh, he is way more of a criminal than Donald Trump.
We just have a different way of voting. That's all. But I don't agree with it. Listen, I was in L.A., Rabbi, a few weeks ago.
Sure,
it's a cesspool. It's terrible.
Yeah,
I don't think Gavin Newsom's done a very good job as a governor. However, again, this is just personal. This is just the way I vote. I don't think, morally speaking, Gavin Newsom is a terrible guy. I don't think policy-wise he's done a great job. Now, I agree with some of his stuff when it comes to the abortion issue. For example, when it comes to gun control. There are some things that I certainly agree with Gavin Newsom on. under any circumstance, I don't think I could ever vote for Donald Trump. I just couldn't. He's a morally repugnant human being, a snake oil salesman who's only out for himself. And the election lies stuff. By the way, all these people that are running for office in Las Vegas, not all, a lot. Adam Laxalt, Jim Marchant, Sigal Chattah, all election deniers. Would you ever vote for somebody that said the earth is flat? I mean, that's what these people are doing.
Right.
And that's just me. But, Rabbi, that's just me, right? I get it. You're a conservative. You're a Republican. You believe in those values. I just don't think Donald Trump represents any values of the Jewish faith. I don't think Donald Trump represents any values of any religion, quite frankly. When you look at all the kids he's had with different women and the cheating and the sins that he's committed in his life. So that's just me.
Right. So again, because not only are we judged in heaven, so to speak.
Right.
First name's Rabbi, so I'll give you a little religion, right?
Yeah.
So when the Almighty looks down upon us, not only does he judge us based on what we do, he judges us based on what we inspire and enable as well. So we started the conversation. You said, what good did he do for what good did Donald Trump do for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel? Well, I'll tell you, just two really quick ones, and those are the two that stand out.
Yep.
The Abraham Accords. That is something that I think there's uniformity in terms of political analysts. If it wasn't for Donald Trump and his administration, that would not have happened. I think that has done a lot to move the world forward.
Yep.
Tremendous. And moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
I don't doubt that, and I also understand that Barack Obama wasn't very pro-Israel, but I can still look at you in the eye as two Jewish people talking, and I believe that Barack Obama is still a decent human being. I believe him to be a good family man. I believe him to be a good father, a good husband. I do believe he cares about people, and he's a decent guy. Yes, I didn't like the fact that he was hanging out with Jeremiah Wright. I didn't like that.
Right.
I also didn't like the fact that he wasn't very pro-Israel. But I can look you in the eye right now as a Jewish person and still tell you, and this is just me, I would absolutely 100% vote for Barack Obama over Donald Trump, because I believe as a whole, maybe those two people, Barack Obama is not best for the people of Israel, but I believe Barack Obama is still best for the people of the United States of America.
So this is a very valuable thing to promote, the idea that identify who's going to bring more goodness into the world, regardless of personality. Like, this is something our previous caller, he's not even on. That's not even on the planet in terms of understanding that, because he really is wrapped up in the personality. Do I like the?
Well, he was a little more colorful than I would be, but to me, it's a lot more than just. To me, it's a lot more than just personality. To me, it's about behavior and the way you've lived your life. I personally believe if you've lived a reckless life, you're probably going to be a reckless president. George W. Bush lived a reckless life. I don't believe he was a very good president. Bill Clinton did live a reckless life. There were some things he did good, some things he didn't do good. Donald Trump has been sued his entire life. I believe him to be a snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
And, kids with multiple women, the cheating. And I believe he hurt this country. Now, you believe his policies worked and the country was in a better place. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe Joe Biden is a decent man. He wasn't my first, second, or third pick. I don't think he's a great president by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think he was your fourth, fifth, or sixth pick either.
Probably not. And most
I don't think so.
Probably not, Rabbi. And most Democrats don't want him to run again. I'm not a Democrat, but I don't want to see him run.
Sure.
And I don't like Kamala Harris. I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I don't like Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
I don't like Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
But I can sit here and tell you with a straight face, I would still vote for any of those people over Donald Trump. I really would. And it's not because I have Donald Trump derangement syndrome. It's because I believe when he still sits there and says he won the election in a landslide when he lost, he's attacking our democracy in exchange for looking people in the eye and lying to them because of his own ego.
Yeah, no, listen.
I find that extremely problematic, and I'm surprised you don't.
Listen, because I don't view, people jump always attacking the democracy. It's like
he did
attacking the democracy. Is that
you don't think he
really
did?
Going on?
Trying to overthrow an election of the great people in this country that voted,
I mean,
and he's trying to erase that with fake electorates and lying.
When you come and you file in the court saying, I think there was enough fraud over here,
which they lost in the courtroom 61 times.
And then they lost in all the...
and he still says it to this day.
Okay, so the thing is that it's clear that the election was not... It is what it was. Yeah. Okay, clear. So I'm not an election denier, that kind of stuff.
I understand. I know you're not.
But the thing is, you take it, you go... the way he did it is not necessarily the way I would have done it.
I'll tell you...
But again... I think we have to look at that.
I'll tell you